Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content.
January 17th, 1781. Cherokee County, South Carolina. It is the height of the Battle of Cowpens, a life or death struggle between the British and American militia for control of the southern colonies. The battlefield is littered with dead and dying men and horses, the rattle of gunfire and sounds of distant fighting with knives, rifle butts, and bayonets. Through the thick gray clouds of gun smoke emerges William Washington's light dragoons, a colonial cavalry unit charging ahead with sabers drawn. Their target? The most feared, most hated man in the colonies. Brigadier General Banastre Tarleton, clad in a battle-damaged green jacket, spins in his saddle to see the threat emerging. He is only 26 years old, but has already made a reputation for himself as the most brilliant cavalry commander in the British Army. Undefeated in battle, with a reputation for brutal efficiency and bloodthirsty tactics, he is absolutely despised by the population of the Carolinas. He's outnumbered and outgunned, but Butcher Tarleton is fearless. He's not about to back down. He swings his horse around, wheels his small elite unit of cavalry raiders, and charges ahead. He meets William Washington with a clash of swords. They duel a moment, steel on steel, before Tarleton reaches to his holster, draws a pistol, and levels it at Washington's horse. Then he unleashes a shot at point-blank range.
Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we tell the badass history of badasses. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined today once again by co-host slash producer Andrew Jacobs. Andrew, welcome back. Thanks for jumping in once again to help me tell a story of a guy who I think maybe, I usually say like a great man from history, great warrior from history. He's a great warrior from history, but he's not necessarily a great man.
Listen, my context, you gave me a little homework, so my context is like, well, this guy's a dick, so,
yes.
but I don't know that the context you gave me, and we'll get back to that, is necessarily entirely representative of the true story of this dude.
It's worse. The real guy's worse than the movie.
Oh, worse. Oh my God.
Worse.
Oh, geez. Come on.
I like to have you on for these types of characters, like badass, we've kind of defined badass as being somebody who perseveres against all odds and does, accomplishes what they want to accomplish, regardless of the morality of that accomplishment. And I don't know, for some reason, you always end up coming on for the Rasputins,
the anti-heroes,
and the Magellans.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I mean, it's fun. Well, and also this, this is our 4th of July episode.
Yes.
We are gearing up to celebrate America's independence.
Yep, and that was the homework. So I had you watch The Patriot, which is good 4th of July movie. The guy we're going to talk about today, Banastre Tarleton, he is the inspiration for the villain in that movie. Who Jason Isaacs is amazing in that movie, does an awesome job of playing just a completely hateable villain. And when we get into the real Banastre Tarleton and you start to learn about him, you're going to realize that you hate this guy even more than the version from the film.
Great. Yeah, classic. What are your plans for the 4th of July?
Well, let's see. I do this thing every year. I kind of got out of it once we had the kid, but he's starting to be old enough now, I think, that we can do it again. I used to always have a party every year. In Seattle, the weather's kind of rainy, as you've heard, but after the 4th of July, there's like nowhere better. The skies kind of open up for like July and August in Seattle are like some of the most beautiful scenery you've ever seen in your entire life, and it doesn't rain that much, and it's nice. So 4th of July weekend, in the past, I was in this tiny apartment, but I had access to this roof deck. And so I would just be like, I would send out an invite to my entire Facebook friends list, just be like, hey, I bought a keg of Rainier beer. I'm going to drag it up onto my roof. I'm going to get a couple bags of chips. If you want to come, you can come, hang out, just bring any kind of food or drink you want. We'll have a big party. And so I think I'm going to bring that back this year for the first time in a while. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds fun.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. It's one of those things where you go, you have a big party and you invite everybody. So you don't try to like filter for friend group, and you run into these weird situations where you've got like this is my friend from work, and this is my friend from my D&D group, and they're talking to each other about something, but I cannot imagine what, because in my mind, they're completely different things. They're completely compartmentalized into their own place.
Yeah. You're like, oh God, worlds are colliding.
Yeah, what are they talking about?
Yeah. Well, we have, I think for one of the first times in a while, we are going to be here in LA for the 4th of July. We've typically been, out of town, especially when you get to the east side of LA. Oh man, like you don't need to go anywhere to watch fireworks. They're all over the place. And by the way, for those of you who are not in California, who are not even in the United States, by the way, fireworks are illegal in California.
Because you have all the fires, right?
Yeah, for good reason. I don't know if anyone heard about these fires that happened. Yeah. So, but I mean, it is like hours of just fireworks going off. You just see it all over the horizon out here in East LA. But what is cool is they're starting to do, I believe we're going to have some local drone shows, which is like, I don't know. Have you seen these drone shows?
No, I don't know what
Yeah,
this is.
like Google, 4th of July drone show. They do them, I think these things I've seen like vision things where they've done these things in China and they're like crazy. It's just like hundreds of drones or thousands of drones flying around in like synchronicity, making images and stuff, completely like almost entirely fire safe and all that, unless, by the way, your drones are made in Ukraine. Speaking of badass, speaking of badass, you don't that whole thing that Ukraine did with those drones. Let's just hope that we don't want those style drones popping up in East LA.
Yeah, no kidding. Whoa, these are wild. I'm looking at pictures right now as we're talking about this. This is wild. I've never heard of this before. Cool.
Yeah, but I can just imagine one of these days someone's gonna, just like everyone's running for their lives. It's like drones, going.
It's the opening scene of a movie about the robot apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean it's Terminator. It's Judgment Day, except instead of like nukes launching, it's just like drones flying around attacking everyone. Apparently, tiny little like consumer looking drones.
It's Terminator meets the birds.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good pitch. That's a good pitch.
That's our $1 million idea, Andrew. That's what we gotta go with.
This is 2020, the birds in 2025.
Yes.
Some island and they've got a drone factory and the drones are just attacking everyone.
Yeah, just Amazon delivery drones dive bombing people with like affordable merchandise.
Hollywood screenwriters, if you're listening, shoot us an email. We're down to collab.
Yeah, we're claiming that idea though. We're doing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's we own that one.
Yes. Well, as a segue, speaking of terrorizing the population.
Oh yeah. Great.
Let's talk about Bloody Ban, Banastre Tarleton, maybe better known as Butcher Tarleton. It's the 4th of July, but instead of celebrating with drone shows and fireworks, we are going to talk about the most hated British soldier of the American Revolution.
I checked out his Wikipedia. I did not see those nicknames there.
Oh yeah, no, that's what they called him, Butcher Tarleton.
So someone's I maybe I missed it, but if it's not there, fellow badasses, please, let's make sure Wiki is up to date.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we are gonna tell this story, and it's gonna make you mad, and then it's gonna make you patriotic. Possibly. I don't know. It's going to be a good story no matter what. All right. Welcome back to Badass of the Week. I am here with producer Andrew Jacobs. And Andrew, I guess we should give a little background on the American Revolution, because the story here, we're going to start it in 1778, which is a couple of years. The war begins in 75. The war's been going on for about 3 years now. Do you kind of, where are you at with remembering the your 4th grade civics?
I was gonna say I'm pretty old. I was there. No, yeah, I was like, we need to do like Previously on World History.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, let me see. It's been a minute since was that fourth grade? Is that right? That you do American history?
Yes, I did my book, The Guts and Glory American Revolution book is kind of geared for like 5th to 8th grade. So that's about when you start learning this stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, let's see. Obviously, in 1776, around the 4th of July, we declared independence, and we did that because the British, were being jerkwads.
Yes,
is that the best way to describe it?
That's how they do it in the history books. Yeah, that's how they
jerkwads is the historical term.
It's actually a direct quote from John Adams.
Yeah. And so, I think it had been obviously the colonies were, under the rule of the crown, and the crown for a long time let the colonies sort of do what they wanted, self-administer, be cool. But then at some point, we had that, what was it, the 7 Years War, the French and Indian War, that cost the crown a whole bunch of money. They were like, well, dang, we gotta pay that back. So they're like, okay, let's get the colonies to pay for that. And so they started, doing all these things like tariffs that no one liked and totally sucked. And quote unquote taxation without representation.
Yes.
Us colonies, we didn't have any say in terms of what legislation was being passed. They did some other things, like they opened up the colonies' homes to like random search and seizure. There was no due process. It was just like, hey, we're coming in and we're looking around. All sorts of crappy stuff.
Yeah, when we had AJ Jacobs, he was talking about quartering soldiers, where it was just like, this soldier lives in your house now because we need to put troops here and we don't want to pay to build them barracks. He lives with you now.
I'm sure that was super delightful. And then, of course, this all leads to things like, the Boston Tea Party, which was not a party, but
they always look like they're having fun in the paintings, though. It
does look like it would be fun, just tossing a bunch of tea into the bay, which, of course, and tell me if I'm wrong on the sequencing of this, that then, of course, eventually, lots of unrest in Boston. You eventually get the Boston Massacre, which is, not great stuff. And eventually the colonists are like, well, screw this. We don't need these guys. They suck. Let's be our own country.
Right. Yeah. And that's basically where we're at when the story begins. So, like you said, there's no colonial seat in Parliament. The king's making the choices, the Parliament's making the choices, and there is this big movement towards self-determination. Let's be our own country. The British are opposed to this, and there's a war. Okay, so
also just to be clear, the British had a bunch of people named Banastre Tarleton. I just don't think we can abide that.
Yes, and the more you learn about this guy, the more you're going to dislike him. But
that type of, you can't name people like that.
He's going to start getting titles of nobility as the story goes on, and that's going to make him sound even more pretentious. Yeah.
Oh, geez. So that reason alone is enough for revolution and independence, and clearly this guy sucked.
Yes.
So. Yes. Let's do this.
Yeah, yeah. And at the time, the one thing to keep in mind is that, nowadays it seems kind of like, who would win in a war between the U.S. and the U.K.? It's a very different story in 1776 because the colonies, they have population, but it's just the 13 colonies, on the East Coast. Florida was actually a British colony, but they refused to join the revolution. They stayed on the British side. They don't talk about that much, Florida. But I think it's interesting. So, the British were this kind of invincible army. They just won the 7 Years' War. They had battle-hardened soldiers with high-tech gear. They hadn't lost a war in years before this. They've been beaten up.
Laughing at the high-tech gear part.
Yeah, right. The flintlocks but they had better ships. They had a navy. They had better guns. They had all manner. They had fancy uniforms. And the colonials, they didn't have a lot of this stuff. They didn't have military training. They had their hunting rifles and that sort of thing, but they were pretty disorganized. And in the French and Indian War, the heavy lifting was done by the British Army. The colonial forces did not do well in the fighting there, including George Washington, who is now the commander in 1778. He's the commander of the American army. But in the French and Indian War, he lost the only battle he fought and was captured. So, yeah, not great showing. And so when the colonials rebelled, the British were pretty sure they could just sail over here and deal with it. Now, by 1778, we're seeing that might not be the case. The British came close a few times to stomping out the revolution, but the George Washington and the colonial army, they're hanging on. And the war has kind of ground into this stalemate. France has joined on the side of the U.S., if not officially quite yet, but then by sending weapons and money and support and helping equip the army. So suddenly the colonial army is getting more powerful while the British are having logistical and resupply problems. Okay, so most of the fighting, a lot of the fighting at this point has been up north. The big battles where Washington crosses the Delaware and, all those big battles, Brandywine, all that. But by 1778, there's not much fighting happening up in the north. The British have taken New York City and they're holding it. They are waiting for reinforcements from England so that they can kind of push the attack out into the countryside where the colonials are. But the colonials, they don't have enough guys to take New York. So there's like fortifications set up, there's skirmishes, but there's no major battles. And the war up there, Saratoga was a defeat. Reinforcements were going to come from Canada. They were defeated at Saratoga. So now New York City is kind of hanging out here with a ton of British soldiers in it, but the Americans can't dislodge them.
How many people were living in New York at the time? Do we know?
It was still, if it wasn't, I think it was the biggest city in the United States at the time, or what is now the United States at the time.
Yeah. I'm just imagining like, hey, it's New York, a bunch of New Yorkers and a bunch of fancy British
and
soldiers, lording over them.
Yeah, and they didn't like it, right? So they were having they had prison ships in the harbor. So if you were caused too much trouble as a New Yorker, they would put you on this prison ship because they couldn't put you in a prison there because people would bust you out. So they put you on a boat in the harbor, and these prison ships were pretty bad condition. But you had things like the spy ring. They had the Culper spy ring was operating out of New York City, reporting troop movements and stuff. So there were spies. There were saboteurs. There was a discontent among the New Yorkers against the British, but it wasn't enough just yet to push the attack there. Okay, so the commander of the British Army is a General Clinton. He no relation to any George or Bill. He sends his best commander, this guy, Lord Cornwallis. Cornwallis was the commander he was a British commander. He defeated the Americans at Brandywine. He was part of the attack on New York City that captured Brooklyn, captured Manhattan. He gets on a ship with 8,500 soldiers and heads south to South Carolina to try to open up a second front in the South. And what he starts to do is, so he sails down to Charleston. He's going to try to take Charleston, which is where the Patriots set, right?
Yeah.
The British tried to take Charleston early on in the war, but they weren't successful at it. The militia defending South Carolina, the British were trying to land a naval force there, and the defenders set up all of these forts in the harbor that fired basically anything they could fire at the British ships. And at one point, they fired a thing called chain shot, which is where you take two cannonballs and you connect them by a big heavy metal chain.
Gnarly.
Yeah, so that when you shoot it, it spins. And that there was a chain shot that not only broke the mast off the British flagship, but blew the pants off of the British admiral in charge of the operation. He lived, but it blew his pants off. And the British Army was defeated at that, or the British Navy was defeated there. They couldn't make a landing, and they had to sail away with the pants.
His pants were off. His pants were off. It was a defeat.
Yes, that's no way to recover from that. Okay.
So, I want to know where this report comes from. Is that coming from the British or the Americans? Is this independently verified that his pants blew off?
Everybody stops the battle to just look, and he's just like, what?
I feel like I'm like, where's that scene in The Patriot?
Yeah.
Someone's pants just being blown off.
That's what it needed more of.
Really missed out on that. Okay.
Okay, so Cornwallis and his fleet, they sail down, they attack South Carolina, and they take Charleston. And from there, they're going to use, they attack the harbor, they land troops north and south, they surround it from land and sea, they attack it, they take Charleston, and now they're going to use that as a base of operations to attack the colonies in the south, which to this point have been largely untouched by the war. And which also is kind of interesting because when the war begins, there's a lot of support for the revolution in the North, but in the South, it's not as strong. Like there's not as many like devoted revolutionaries there. There are some very hardened revolutionaries down there, but there are a lot of like wealthy cotton plantations, sugar plantations that tobacco that are making a lot of money trading with England, and they don't want to sever that relationship because they've got a good thing going here. They're making a lot of money, and so they don't really want to join the revolution. And so there is this strong loyalist component in the South at the time. Okay. So that's where our guy, Lieutenant Colonel Banastre Tarleton, shows up. And one thing I want to mention about Tarleton is that this is the guy that my father wrote his college thesis on. So I grew up hearing these stories about him. And so that's like why I have this soft spot
Your
for this.
Your dad is a Banastre Tarleton fan.
Yeah, he's a counter-revolutionary.
Also, I don't think I realized that your dad is like you were born into this badass of the week thing.
I did. I inherited it.
You couldn't. But is your dad only like bastards, or did he like some of the good guys too?
Some of the good guys too. Yeah, I learned most of a lot of the stories that that I've told are ones that I'd heard from him first. So he was a history major and he was really into this stuff. So it wasn't only evil characters from history, although he did like them as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now I actually don't know. Is your dad still with us?
No, he passed away a couple years ago. But he did get to.
I would have said, like, why am I here?
Yeah, right. I would have interviewed him for the show, absolutely, if you'd been around for it. He liked the books. The first time he saw a copy of Badass, he was really excited about it, and then I handed it to him, and he started looking through it. He's like, I don't think you can get this stuff published in a school. And I was like, did you not know that I swear a bunch when I write about the history stuff? Had you never read my website before?
Oh, geez.
It was fun. He liked it. He ended up, he came on board eventually. Okay, so let's talk about Bloody Banastre Tarleton. He was born August 21st, 1754, and he was the fourth child of the mayor of Liverpool, England. So he was already like basically nobility at this point. The mayor was a successful guy. He was a merchant who specialized in slave trading and sugar trading. And he put Banastre through law school at University College in Oxford, where Banastre was smaller than a lot of the other guys. He wasn't like a huge guy, but he was completely fearless, never backed down from a challenge, and just kind of stomped everybody at all of the things he did at school, which were like cricket, boxing, horseback riding, polo, tennis, all that stuff that you'd expect like a overprivileged British kid to be good at.
Drinking tea and having biscuits.
Yeah, he was better at that than anybody, like crushed everybody. Yeah. I'm feeling a little guilty because I was talking about the Spitfire a couple days ago and for a different episode, and now I'm making fun of the British. And
we love our British friends.
David was awesome. And he was like, there's a lot of British bashing in that Masters of the Air. And I was like, I would never do anything like that. So apologies if he's listening.
We're all friends now.
Well, I am kind of saying that Tarleton is badass, and he is, and we're going to get into it because this is what he's good at, right? He's gone to law school. He's kicking everybody's ass at fist fighting, fencing, horseback riding, tennis, all this stuff, right? He graduates from Oxford, and And then shortly after that, Tarleton's father passes away. This is in the golden age of, British inheritance, nobility inheritance. So Tarleton is the fourth son, and he doesn't inherit the slave trade and the merchant ships and the fleet and the money and all of that. Tarleton gets as an inheritance £5,000, which I did a conversion on like how much is that in today's money,
Yeah.
But I don't know how accurate the website was, but it said it was like £1 million British pounds.
Okay.
So
not bad.
Real money. Yeah.
Not too shabby.
Serious money. I converted that to the US to dollars, and it's like 1.3 mil. So not bad for an inheritance. This kid's like 21 and he just inherited 1.3 mil. Okay. So what does he do with that? He, over the course of the next year and a half, he blows his entire fortune on booze and gambling and girls, and spends all his time at the clubs and partying and buying stuff he doesn't need, the most flashiest horses or whatever. And
bottle service,
champagne
like a
room.
proper rich kid, right?
Yep, yeah.
With a trust fund. Got it.
That's it. He blows all of his money. He gets down to his last £800, and he uses that to buy an officer's commission in the British Army, which is just a thing you could do.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yes. The British Army at this time, you had high-ranking sergeants. If you'd entered as an enlisted man, you could make it up to the various ranks of sergeants. But officers were gentlemen. They were either nobility or rich people or whatever, and you could buy your way in to being an officer. So that's what he does. He spends all of his money when he's got just a little bit left. In 1775, he buys himself the lowest officer's rank in the British cavalry. It's called a coronet is the name of the rank, but it's basically like a second lieutenant. And you could just do that, which, we'll see as being a problem later on when you can just noblemen buy commissions and then they're the leaders of people who might know better what they're doing. Okay, so Tarleton is 21. He's a low-ranking cavalry officer in the 1st Dragoons Guards, which is a very prestigious cavalry unit. And he's just like, he wants to go off into war. Like when the revolution happens, he's like, this is it. I'm going to make a name for myself fighting this revolution. I'm going to stomp these rebels. I'm going to be the Darth Vader of the British Empire. And I'm just going to just crush everybody. So he's like on the first boat out to join the war. He starts getting promoted just because he's like insanely brave, and he's a great horseback rider. He's a great tracker. He can like follow people. He could do like reconnaissance work. He's a great sword fighter. And if there's a battle, like he's running at it as fast as he can. He doesn't want any fighting to happen without him being involved. So in December of 1776, he's 23 years old. He's been promoted up to major, and he's ordered to take a reconnaissance party to investigate the operations of a colonial general named Charles Lee. Now, Lee at this time is the second in command of the entire Continental Army. He's like number 2 to George Washington. He's operating in New York, and Tarleton is told to go see what he's up to. All right, so Tarleton rides out with his guys. He doesn't just check him out and report him. He actually captures General Lee, who is in his underwear at the time, like busts into his bedroom and captures him at sword point, and the second in command of the Continental Army is in his underwear.
This episode's getting pretty risque. A lot of pants.
we were gonna turn the drone thing into a movie. This is gonna be like a porn or something.
It's just commanding officers without pants.
Yes, commanding officers in their underwear. Yep. Okay, so General Lee is captured and brought back to be interrogated. Later on, Tarleton is fighting with Cornwallis. He's in battles in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. He leads a cavalry attack at Brandywine, which is a big victory for the British Army. He's made a lieutenant colonel, and he's given command of his own unit, which is what he's going to deploy with at Charleston. It's called the British Legion, but he wants to call it Tarleton's Raiders.
Mm-hmm. That's more fun. I get it.
Yeah. British Legion sounds cool, but Tarleton's Raiders, that is more descriptive of what is going to happen here. So what he does with the Raiders is like he's got his core of like British officers from the Dragoons, and he likes those guys. But what he decides he wants to do is, a lot of the fighting here, like a lot of these British officers, they kind of think that they're like too good to be fighting this rabble, right? The colonials are kind of running around. They're fighting this guerrilla war. A lot of these British officers have been fighting big, epic, humongous scale battles in France and Germany, and they've been fighting like, real European war. And this is some guerrilla nonsense. These guys aren't worth our time. But who really hates the patriots in the United States, or what will be the United States, are the loyalists, because these are their neighbors and people who like hate them. I've always hated you. You borrowed my lawnmower and didn't bring it back.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to burn your house down and take it back. And so he goes around recruiting like angry loyalists who hate all this patriot nonsense, all of this like, American independence stuff. Like,
smart move.
Yep. Let's get these guys because they're going to fight harder, not only fight harder, but do more evil stuff to their countrymen.
Well, they know the lay of the land too. Yeah.
Definitely. And so he starts recruiting these guys and gets them into Tarleton's Raiders. And he decides he's going to dress his guys in green jackets, which you see in the Patriot also. Like they want to be distinguished because this guy is like a big flashy guy. He wears the hat with the big horsehair, the big feathers and stuff coming out of the top of his hat.
Yeah, the big poofy black hat that I don't get it, but yeah.
It's supposed to make you look more intimidating. It's supposed to make you look taller so you're more intimidating. Okay. But yeah, so he's wearing that and he dresses his guys in these green jackets so that you can see him coming. Like if they're in the battle, like you see him and you're like, oh no, it's the Raiders. Like there's trouble. If you see them riding up on your farmhouse, you're like, oh, this is going to be bad news. And then the guys in that unit, they get this kind of, inspired to fight because they have this unit pride now that we're just better than the rest of the army. We fight harder. We're capable of more stuff. Okay. Tarleton's Raiders, they participate in some major battles and they are brave. Tarleton is he's not a coward. If there's fighting, he wants to be there. But if there's not fighting, if there's not a big battle going on, he still wants to be involved in some fighting and killing and whatever. So these guys start going around. If they suspect any Patriot sympathizers, or if some of these guys in his unit are like, actually, my neighbor who never cuts his grass, I think he's probably a Patriot. Let's go over to his house. So
okay.
They go over and they interrogate people. They burn homes down. They burn down farms. They hang people that they believe are Patriot sympathizers. If they capture enemies in battle, they execute them, and they recruit loyalists to fight for them. And this is just kind of like a scorched earth, death, destruction, Genghis Khan style of combat, which is not super common at this time period. And like the British Army is not doing this all around the world. They're not doing this all around even the colonies.
But it seems like on the one hand, maybe it could be effective, like in terms of like inspiring fear and making people not want to rebel against you. But then for some people, it's just going to make them more pissed off. Yes,
exactly. And that's what we're going to see, because these guys, he wants to kind of beat the revolution into submission. But, like you said, that kind of doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you give people who were kind of neutral, some of them are going to be like, I'm definitely not getting involved now because I don't want this to happen to me. But as you start seeing people who are maybe not involved with the revolution getting punished as though they were, now maybe that neutral party is like, maybe I should fight against this guy just because I don't want him to come to my house and suspect me of doing something.
So they're riding around. Tarleton's Raiders are riding around being pretty savage in South Carolina. Is that correct? In South Carolina,
South Carolina. Yeah. Yep.
And burning down, hanging people. Yeah, I gotta ask though. There's like the homework you assigned me, the super dramatic scene when he in the Patriot when he burns down the church with all the people inside of it, right, including Heath Ledger's new wife.
Yes.
I assumed that did not happen.
We don't have a story like that, although there are here's one story about, and this is, you kind of have to accelerate things for Hollywood, but this is a thing that was deemed extremely monstrous in 1778. Tarleton is in South Carolina, and there's the leader of one of these. So like you said, people don't like him, and there are these militias. They're operating underground. They're guerrilla fighting, doing kind of what Mel Gibson's doing in The Patriot, operating in the swamps. And you've got, the swamp fox, Francis Marion is down there. There's another guy named Thomas Sumter who has a militia of South Carolinians who are causing trouble. They're attacking wagon trains and logistics and causing trouble for the British. And Tarleton and his raiders are sent to deal with this guy. So Tarleton rides up and he's always has this very fancy, very pristine uniform. And he rides up on Sumter's house, which is this big like plantation house in South Carolina. Really nice. Sumter had money. And he rides up and he knocks on the front door of Sumter's house, and Sumter's wife opens the door. And he's like, "Hi, I'm, Colonel Banastre Tarleton. I'm with the British Army. I'm looking for your husband. Can you talk?" And she's like, "No, he's not."
She's like, "See the sign? No soliciting."
Yes. But she's like, "No, I can't. He can't. He's not here. But do you want to come inside?" And I say, "Okay." So he goes in with a couple of his closest officers, and she invites them into the dining room or the sitting area or whatever, and she makes tea and they have food. She makes she and her staff make this really nice lunch for the British officers, including Tarleton. And he sits there and he eats the lunch, and they're talking, and it's all very civil and polite. And then when the food's over, she shows him they use the fancy silverware. Oh, this is his chair. It's his favorite chair. And when the dinner's over, Tarleton says, "Oh, thank you so much for lunch. That was lovely. Okay, men, burn it down." And and he grabs Thomas Sumter's favorite chair, drags it out the front door, plants it in the middle of the yard, and then he sits in the chair and watches as his men burn the house and the plantation to the ground.
Wow, that is and that is a full overlap of the Venn diagram of one circle as badass and one circle as total dick.
Yep.
And full overlap there.
Full overlap. I'm picturing the crossed legs with the polished boots.
Yeah.
Particularly the hat, everything.
Jeez.
Yep. And so that's Tarleton. That is perfect character of Tarleton. He also, but one difference you'll see between this guy and various brigands and bandits and characters of this nature in history is that he is not afraid of a stand-up fight. A lot of these kinds of characters who run around and burning and doing all this terrible stuff, they run away when you challenge them. But Tarleton's not like that. So he brings his legion. His legion's about 500 guys. He brings them into combat at the Battle of Monk's Corner in 1780, where he attacks straight on into the Continental cavalry. So the colonials put together a cavalry force to try to face him. They attack him. He defeats them handily, and only one group from the Continental survives, the 3rd Virginia Cavalry under Abraham Buford, who's the great uncle of John Buford, who's the hero of the Battle of Gettysburg. Buford starts to run, breaks, and it's just I'm the last of the rebel cavalry in the South. I got to keep these guys alive, rebuild, whatever. He starts to run for it. And he ends up with a 10-day head start on Tarleton. And Tarleton's we got to get these guys. And so he starts tracking them. And he finds these guys, catches up to them, personally leads the charge. He's got 200 guys with him. Buford's got 380. So Tarleton's outnumbered 2-1. He's got these guys on the run, but they're going to stand and fight him. Oh, maybe this is our chance to get this guy. And he attacks. So in this battle, Tarleton charges. They have a big volley of fire. The Continentals are badly wounded. He charges in hand-to-hand combat. And as he's about to charge with his saber, he gets his horse shot out from him. His favorite horse, probably one of these horses he bought with that 5,000 pounds. His favorite horse gets shot out from under him. He's thrown from the horse. Gets up, runs into battle with his sword and his pistol on foot. The Tarleton's raiders win the battle. The British win. The last of the American cavalry is defeated. The Americans lose 113 dead, 150 wounded, and 53 captured. And the British lost.
Boo.
Yeah, and the British, while killing and wounding 260 American soldiers and capturing another 50, the British lost 19 men and 31 horses. And Tarleton references the horses many times in his memoirs and in his after-battle reports, because that with even greater reverence than his fallen soldiers, because he's so sad about being thrown from his horse while leading a saber charge.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Listen, I don't know when our next. Are we gonna whenever we take our next break? I'm gonna go throw all of our tea in the garbage.
Yeah, let's go do that right now. I'll do the same thing.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back. All right, so welcome back. We are dealing with Banastre Tarleton, who is so far invincible. He's won every battle he's taken part in, and when he's not winning battles, he's burning things to the ground and killing civilians. He actually at one point captures. We talked about that Culper spy ring in New York. At one point, his guys capture a letter that was intended for them, like a series of letters. And while they don't root out the Culper ring, they find a couple people that are on the fringe of it, and they go to their houses and like one of these guys, like they beat up his dad to try to get information out of him. They're just bad guys. They're bad people, and you want bad things to happen to them. Okay, so the and wait, what you said is true here, right? Like for all of this terrible stuff, like South Carolinians, North Carolinians, Virginians, people who are neutral, like they've decided he's not making friends for the British Empire here. He is losing, like for every guy he's imprisoning or every soldier he's defeating, 2 or 3 more are joining the revolution because they hate this guy so much that he's kind of driving recruitment. He's on the recruiting posters.
He's radicalizing. He's radicalizing
yes.
Americans.
Yes, he is. He's unifying the country in joint hatred towards this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so George Washington's like, we got to do something about Tarleton. He's a big problem. So he sends Horatio Gates, who was the American commander at Saratoga. He's like one of the better generals we've got. He goes down there to try to face Tarleton and engages him at the Battle of Camden in August of 1780 and is crushed. Tarleton demolishes him. He leads a charge. He defeats the American infantry, chases them, rides them down, slashes them in the back as they're running away from his horses. He defeats them again at Fishing Creek. He defeats them again at Blackstock Hill.
Ouch.
Some of them surrender. He orders all of the prisoners executed as traitors and spies. And
is that the one where there were a bunch of all the prisoners got like bayoneted or something?
Yes, that happens. So the details of how they were killed is unclear because nobody survived. But like you said, like the recruiting posters are Americans getting bayoneted in the back after surrendering. Okay, so the Americans are like, we got to do something. What else do we got? We have a few guys left. They send in this guy Dan Morgan, who Dan Morgan's awesome, and I want to talk about him as his own badass at some point in the future. And when I do, we'll call back this episode. So if you're coming from the future, calling back from the Daniel Morgan episode, welcome. But
we can re-release this episode.
Let's do it.
We'll do it but we'll re-release it. Already planning on it.
Love it.
Done.
Great idea. Okay, so Dan Morgan is, he's not a general. He's a colonel, and he's not as high ranking as a general because they're out of generals. The generals are all being defeated. He takes over here, and he's got to face Tarleton at a battle called Cowpens in January of 1781, a couple months after the Camden disaster. Now, Tarleton's 26 years old. He's won, right? He's been fighting this revolution for years now. He's beaten the Patriots from New York City to Charleston. He's won every fight he's been in. Everybody's afraid of him. Everybody hates him. They're calling him Bloody Banastre. They're calling him Bloody Ban, Butcher Tarleton. So we've got to have this big showdown, and that's where Dan Morgan comes in. And what Dan Morgan does is something...
And just pause you for one sec. Dan Morgan, now that is an old, good, solid American name.
Yes, Daniel Morgan's a big, giant Virginia guy. He's like blind in one eye. He's huge. He just fights with a sword, and he's like a big, scary, terrifying dude.
Banastre Tarleton versus Dan Morgan. Come on.
Yep. Yep. Like Dan Morgan's the name of a middle linebacker,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what this guy looked like, and that's his vibe, right? He wants snipers, and he wants swords, and that's how he wants to fight the war. So anyway, there's a battle at the Battle of Cowpens, and Tarleton charges and moves his infantry forward, and then he charges with his cavalry, which is what he's done every other time. And just like every other time, he charges with his cavalry. The American army fires one thing. They see him riding in on horseback with his green jacket guys, and they take off running. Except this time, It's that thing we've seen a million times. It's the Yisun Shin. It's the thing we've seen over and over again on this episode. It's a fake retreat, and there's a whole bunch of guys hiding in the woods. And right when Tarleton's about to get to them, they all stand up out of the bushes and out of trenches, and they open fire on him, and they blast him. Okay. It was the first defeat that Tarleton ever faces. He's brave in this battle. He charges up. He's fighting on horseback. He gets to the American line, starts fighting. He gets a couple fingers blown off in like hand-to-hand combat. But he escapes. He lives. But much of his cavalry is defeated. He gets into a fight with William Washington, who is George Washington's cousin, and he wounds William Washington with a sword in a sword fight before getting his fingers blown off. And just because I love this guy being just this completely hateable, like British, like snooty guy, after the battle is over in his after action report, he's like entirely blames Lord Cornwallis for it. He's like, it's not my fault. I did everything right. He was supposed to send me reinforcements. They didn't show up on time, and I was left hanging out there. I did everything I could. I bled for the Empire, but it didn't work out because my commanding officer is incompetent.
Yeah, talk about passing the buck.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I like having obviously very recently watched The Patriot. As you tell this story, I can only picture a young, sneering Jason Isaacs as you tell this.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
it's so good in this whole, in all of this.
Yes, Jason Isaacs is awesome. My favorite role of his is still Zhukov in General Zhukov in The Death of Stalin, but this is like a close second for me. Okay, so he's there at Guilford Courthouse is another battle. He keeps fighting in the war. Just being grievously wounded doesn't really matter for him. He just keeps fighting.
You don't need 10 fingers.
No, he almost captures Peter Francisco at one point. We've talked about that in the Peter Francisco episode, which is our first episode of this show. Peter Francisco runs up against Tarleton's raiders. Tarleton's not there, but Francisco, of course, like is awesome and uses a broadsword. He takes the saber away from one of they come to like the farmhouse. So at Guilford Courthouse, Peter Francisco is wounded. He's brought to like a farmhouse to be healed. To recover, and a group of Tarleton's raiders show up, and the story goes that he's like shot and wounded and like very badly injured, but he steals the cavalry saber from one of Tarleton's guys and kills him with it and cuts another guy's hand off and then rides off on a horse. So
I mean, yeah, this is great. The badass of the week cinematic universe is finally starting to merge together.
Yes. I love it. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
How do we work the drone movie into that?
Just in a couple of more years, you're all of these characters in one episode. Endgame.
Yes. And so, and so, and then we'll do the time travel thing that I just love. I love time travel in movies. It's my favorite mechanic. We'll just bring everybody together and we'll have them all fight. We'll see who wins.
I'm down. All right.
And so Tarleton's, like we said, he keeps driving recruitment to the Patriot cause, and the defeat at Cowpens is hard for him. The French do like start sending soldiers to help the Americans in the war, and Cornwallis at some point and Tarleton are forced to withdraw back to Yorktown, which is a fortress in Virginia. They try to bring in reinforcements by sea, but the French Navy defeats the British Navy in a battle off the coast of Yorktown. It's another one that doesn't get talked about that much. We should probably do that episode on the show because it's cool. But the French Navy defeats the British Navy and reinforcements aren't coming. So there are a few like cavalry charges by Tarleton at the campaign at Yorktown trying to push back the Americans, but the American army, the French army, they lay siege to Yorktown. Cornwallis surrenders, and that's kind of where we generally place the end of the American Revolution. So Tarleton's there at the beginning, and he's there for the last battle. And
woohoo!
Yeah, and there's
we won.
Yes, and so you just watched the movie. Do you remember what happens to Jason Isaacs in the movie?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big battle, and Mel Mel Gibson's character, or whatever his name is, is running around with the flag as a weapon in slow motion, because that's really how you win a revolution.
He's the most patriotic Australian we've ever seen.
Yeah. And he's gonna. It all culminates in Mel Gibson's like on his knees, and Jason Isaacs is Tarleton, who's named Tavington in that movie.
Yes.
So it's not exact. He's an
amalgamation of a couple guys. So is Mel Gibson's character. He's an amalgamation of Sumter and Francis Marion and a couple other.
So he's like
people.
He's like ready to behead Mel Gibson's character. He's like running up to like swing a knife at him, and Gibson like spins around and bayonets him in the gut, and then like shoves a bayonet right into his neck.
Yes, exactly.
It's pretty gruesome,
but pretty awesome. And you're like, finally, this guy got what was coming to him. He's just been asking for this all movie, and he finally got it. That's what you get for killing Heath Ledger. Okay, well, something terrible happens to Banastre Tarleton in real life as well. So it's not quite the end that Mel Gibson gets, but after Cornwallis surrenders at Yorktown, his surrender is accepted by the Marquis de Lafayette and George Washington and the French army commander at the time. And one thing that was kind of common, these are all officers and gentlemen and things. So after the war ends, the battle has been over. Cornwallis officially surrenders his sword, and him and his officer staff are invited to like a nice fancy dinner where all of the generals and officers will share dinner and say, "Oh, that was a good war. Good job, you guys. We fought well, but you are loyal, noble adversaries. We respect you. Let's toast to all of our fortunes and glory that we've achieved in war." And they did not invite Banastre Tarleton. He was not invited to the after-war party.
He's like, there's like a bouncer and with the velvet rope, and Tarleton's on the outside.
Invitations,
like,
come
please. On, man. You're not on the list, buddy.
It's Dan Morgan. You're not on the list, bub. Yes.
Oh man.
And so he returns home to England. He is
that's almost as bad as getting bayoneted in the stomach.
Yeah, in the throat. Almost. Yeah. So he returns home to England, where he is received as a huge war hero. He is knighted. He's promoted. He's elected to Parliament, where he becomes a vocal advocate for the next 20 years for not ending the slave trade.
Dick.
He becomes known as Sir Banastre Tarleton, 1st Baronet of Tarleton. He writes his memoirs, which become a bestseller across England. And he spends 15 years in a relationship with the most famous and most beautiful actress in England, who he only dated because a friend bet him he couldn't get her to go out with him. He lives to 78 years old and dies a wealthy and successful man, much beloved in England. And there's an American author named Washington Irving, very famous American author, who is quoted as saying, "Afterwards, in England, he had the effrontery to boast, in the presence of a lady of respectability, that he had killed more men and ravished more women than any man in America."
Dang.
Yeah, and that's Banastre Tarleton.
That's a good line. That's a good line.
Just love to hate him. You just love to hate him. I can't do the accent, but if I could do like the most posh British accent I could come up like ever invented, that's how I would read that.
But listen. All of that sounds great for him. All of that sounds really great for him. People love him. He's best-selling writer, dating,
movie stars,
hot actress or movie star. Yeah, the hot actress. Parliament, dying at a ripe old age of 78. But I just know that not getting into that after-war party just ate away at him.
It's a great party. The French have good wine.
Decades.
They got good food.
He, that's his Rosebud moment. He died and he was thinking about that. So he got his in the end, right?
Yes. And he also had to go through the rest of his life missing 2 fingers. They probably didn't reattach those, right?
No.
And that's it. I mean, badasses come in all shapes and sizes and moralities. And you can say what you want about this guy. He definitely had perseverance. He definitely went all out for everything. He was a very successful commander. much like very popular at home, very hated by his enemies. If we were, if we weren't like the people getting killed repeatedly in this story, I feel like it would be
I was gonna say,
wasn't Americans dying in this story, I feel like it would be easier to kind of get behind him.
If we were British, hero.
Yeah.
maybe still kind of a jerk. He didn't need to do so when he did. The sport of slavery, not good. That's not good. But yeah, but he was a loser. He lost that war.
He did lose. He lost that battle of Cowpens, and I think it was his fault. I don't think it was Lord Cornwallis's fault that he fell for the fake retreat.
And guess what? We're independent, sucker.
Oh man, yeah. So that's it. That's the episode. That's Bloody Ban. Right. Banastre Tarleton. Happy 4th of July. Yeah, we don't have to deal with those guys anymore because we don't have to deal with the bloody Banasters of the world anymore.
They can stay on their side of the ocean.
Yeah. And but we do love British people on this show. We don't advocate violence against British people in general. Although it is sometimes fun to tell stories like this.
We've mended our fences. We have a special relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We're all good now.
Yeah,
we're all good.
It's all good. We're all friends.
Yeah.
I was telling David that I do feel very patriotic when I see Spitfires flying in formation, even though I'm not a British subject.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's hard to not get excited about that.
I'm more of a Mustang guy myself.
Yes,
but
the Mustang used the Spitfire engine, which I learned from David.
All right, well, there we go.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Happy 4th of July. Don't, have fun with the fireworks. And
don't blow off your fingers like Tarleton or Jason Pierre-Paul or whatever the Giants player is.
Yeah, right. Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. We will see you on the next one.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.